Welcome to the Blooming League of Original Podcasts.
G'day and welcome to an extra value upsized edition of Thrash and Treasure, the Torture Chamber musical comedy podcast that's like throwing a bomb and a ball into an antique record store. And speaking of abominable, I'm Aaron, and I'm joined as usual. Shut up, that was clever. And I'm joined as usual by the Felix to my Oscar, the Butthead to my Beavis, the Mary Kate to my Ashley Olsen. It's Evan the Metal Man. Good morning, how you doing?
Good morning, how are you going?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I am so excited because guess what?
What?
We have another legendary diva in the studio today. So I hope you've been practicing your Knifey-Spoony because things are about to get tasty. But that's just how the dominoes fell. Wendy's Portlandian set sail for Hollywood, only to wind up in Springfield as a writer-producer on a tiny little unknown show called The Simpsons, where he oversaw some of the fiercest and funniest episodes in the show's short 33-year history. But before I hop into that, this magnificent grammagician saw it his mission to create and climb the cult classic Mission Hill, proving he never does things the subway. Denny's profession propelled this premier producer into the Futurama, perfectly punctuating his pop cultural punchlines with such precision they caused us to pop eyes. But forward to the past, this brilliant Burger King of the televisuals also lent his literary licks to loads more lounge rooms that left us leaky from all the laugh-out-loud linguistics lingering long after, like how he took the Funkhouses to Portlandia via business class for the disenchantment of 22 birthdays with the Chicago party aunt. Or was it 23? Close enough. So please may I help you in serving up a freshly grilled g'day and a would you like fries with that to the Writers Guild Award winning scribe and longtime collaborator of Josh Weinstein, who also captured 3 Emmy Awards and our hearts with some of the Simpsons' most iconic episodes, including both Who Shot Mr. Burns', Lisa versus Malibu Stacy, Marge Gets a Job, Sideshow Bob Roberts, and the highly offensive Bart versus Australia, which caused many of my countrymen to complain. So today, he's here so we can exact our apology on him, because how embarrassing. So we welcome to the torture chamber with open arms and mouths to the Jolly Bee who feeds us his golden nuggets of restaurant reviews while sampling the United States of fast food. And oh, great, now I'm hungry. So luckily, we've got the chef's choice delivered. It's Mr. Bill Oakley. Yay, how you doing? Welcome to the torture chamber.
That was an incredible introduction. I just want to say, before we get too far past it, that was an amazing introduction.
Thank you.
Well crafted. All the food references were terrific, and also lots of deep cuts from my career.
Yes.
There, I really appreciated it, the craftsmanship that went into that.
Yes, thank you very much. Look, we're getting people to listen to music they wouldn't normally to, so the least we can do is butter them up first before torturing them with rah, 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 rah music. But good morning, how are you doing?
I am doing well. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for waking up at this crazy hour. Even me, I probably didn't even want to wake up this early, but it's 10:30 here.
Oh, that's not bad.
We're happy to go wherever our guests are available because you're so incredibly good enough to give up your insanely busy schedules to come on our show. And the least we can do is be awake.
Okay, very good. Well,
really
mission accomplished.
So yes, that's it. But on behalf of my country, I am so sorry by everyone complaining. I don't know what that was. I really don't. Australia has a sense of humor. We're supposed to be able to take the piss out of ourselves, and that happened, and you guys got complaints. So I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. It's okay. From what I understand, the complaints were primarily when the show first aired in 1990, like 25 years ago. And since then, people have come to embrace it because I'm always being sent like lots of people actually sell flags with the boot on them and things like that. And so I see that, like, initially I think there was a little bit of a shock, especially among kids, because we got a lot of angry letters from teachers would have their kids write letters to us, the whole class, asking why we did this thing to them. And but since then I've just seen it grow more in popularity over time as people have embraced it. And now every time I talk to someone Australian, it comes up in a positive way.
Yes.
Maybe the
Yes.
people who don't like it aren't communicating with me, though. I don't know.
No, well, I'm sure they would though, because everyone complains about like everything. Like, but that's why it's a surprise that, like, looking back on it now, and I knew at the time that like there was complaints because me being a total nerd and reading the TV guide and and all the entertainment sections of the newspapers. So I knew that there was the complaints, but Australia that I knew, the Australia that I grew up in, took the piss out of ourselves. We had friggin' Jacko. We sold Jacko to the world with his "I'm an individual, you can't fool me."
I remember that. I remember the.
And we were embarrassed about that. I remember seeing
Now we're embarrassed, yes, but at the time, like,
no, even at the time, I remember seeing one of the commercials and just going, "Oh, really? Is that what we?"
you were a teenager.
Yeah, and I wasn't a fan of footy as well because he was, a big football player.
Exactly. Whereas I'm a
Yeah.
huge footy fan, so that was a thing of pride to be selling our football and Australia, and even with Paul Hogan and all that jazz. Like there was this big, huge Aussie explosion in the 80s that.
Yeah, that's referenced in that episode.
Yes,
that whole thing with the Paul Hogan stuff and I think Jacko's in there too with the battery, with the Energizer battery. As I recall, yes.
Yeah, I watched it the other day, but I don't know if I picked up on the battery, which is stupid because I'm the one that brought it up in this conversation. But anyways, speaking of stupid, we'll move on to metal. Now, firstly, if you were a rock star, what would be in your crazy, over-the-top dream rock star rider?
Oh man, that's a good question.
Thank you. You're the first person that said that.
I would probably do, if I was going to have to perform, it wouldn't be nearly as fun. That's the unfortunate thing. It's like I would like all the treats and liquor and food and stuff for after the concert. Before the concert, I would just like a glass of water, because I don't want to get all full and not be able to perform at my maximum capacity. But afterwards, I would like a lot of liquor of assorted varieties with a lot of ice, and I would like a lot of cheeseburgers from a prominent cheeseburger place. I wouldn't also mind some various candies and things like that. Maybe some huckleberry candies. I like those a lot. That would be hard to get. That'd be kind of a rare thing to put in a rider. And what else? I'd also like to be left alone. So probably a lot of security issues and things like that. So, or I'd also probably just like to leave as well. So the concert venue, I don't know if I'd want to hang around there, but okay, this is the first I've ever thought about this. So that's a rough draft of my answer.
That is a very rough draft, and not yet a goat. I'm still waiting for someone to say they want a random goat just sitting in the corner. I don't know why.
Just to see if they'll do it. Yeah.
But I'm still waiting for something ridiculous, like really over the same, but everyone's too nice. I don't know why, but anyways, we'll move on. And I chose the album. And why did I choose this? Because it's freaking Kiss. Everyone knows Kiss. And obviously with Bill's massively busy schedule and all his fast food videos that he's doing all the time, which I am so jealous, by the way. As you can tell, I eat a lot of KFC. And Evan can't believe how much sugar and crap I eat. And then I see your videos and I'm like, oh, Bill, that's not fair. I want your job.
This isn't really a job, by the way. It doesn't pay any money. I still have my TV writing job, but thank you.
There is nothing stopping me from doing it myself, obviously, except laziness and this podcast. But I chose their debut album, Kiss, because no other reason than that.
Because you didn't know any better.
Because I didn't know any better. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I figured, well, they're Kiss. Everyone knows them. I'm going to know at least 5 of the songs. So before we get into discussion, I'm going to quickly run through my review and we'll see what I thought of it. When I first saw the cover, I was confused. Why are we doing cats for the metal album? So bewildered, I pressed play and found it isn't the blockbuster Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, but instead my ears were instantly hit with syphilis. Boy, are the STDs ripe on this sleazy glam rock effort. Not that I'm complaining. Whilst I'm familiar with Gene Simmons's acclaimed work in Great Expectations and The Thornbirds and more, hearing the late great actress getting down and dirty in such a raw way was enlightening. But even with these darker, sleazier numbers, the differences between USA and UK and Aussie glam rock sticks out. Each has its own iconic sounds and flavors and iconic artists. But where British glam feels focused on lyrics and mind-blowing rhythms, Aussie glam feels right at home in a sleazy bar. But American glam feels like it's aimed at catchy rhythms and easy lyrics to hook one in. For even in this early effort, does their future of mainstream stadium-ready sing-along glam feel front and center. And where I'm not interested in music I've heard 100,000 times, this album was actually pretty darn fresh and quite rock and roll. 4 stars.
Oh, that's pretty high praise. I'm surprised.
This felt like the intersection between me and my father, which is something that we've always needed in my 36-year life. A buffer between us. This felt like Buddy Holly lived and got into glam rock.
Right.
A lot of these numbers felt rooted in rock and roll. I know they started off as was it Wicket something? A band called Wicket something that was more rock and roll, and then they went darker.
Oh, they were all in different bands generally. God, I had a list here somewhere.
Paul and Jean, before they changed their names, they were Klein and Eisen, and they were in a band called Wicket something, which I should have written down, but I didn't because I'm an idiot. So yeah, no, I actually really liked this, and I was surprised. I didn't know a single dance song on it.
Right.
So well done to me. So that was at least 1 star for that. Good choice for that.
I would have thought you'd at least know either Black Diamond or Strutter.
No.
They were relatively big.
No, but it was also sleazy, and I kind of liked that, which is what I like about glam rock and like Skyhooks.
Well, see, if you like the album, then you probably wouldn't like them live, because they are totally different live, and that was half their problem early on. Was they sound nothing like they do live than
really?
what was recorded. Yeah, they're way heavier and more raucous and over the top live than they are. So yeah, you chose their debut album just because you kind of threw a dart at a dartboard, but their first few albums didn't really do that well. And someone made the comment of well, your live show is so much different than how you sound on the albums. So after the second album, they just recorded a tour and just called it, I think, Kiss Alive. And that's what really started selling. And they did this double album, which people don't normally do at the time.
Was that a double album? There was 9 tracks.
No, Alive, the third album.
Oh, okay. So, okay.
Although it's not even listed as a studio album because it was just, they just recorded their tour. They put out this double album. They were doing okay at the time, but not worldwide megastars. But it was the live album that really took off in terms of sales. So if I had to choose, I would have chosen the live album, which you would have hated.
Yeah, they hadn't had their Quincy Jones Thriller moment, according to Timbaland.
Yeah. Kiss were all about the live show. That was their thing. It was about the fans, and it was about being as over top as possible.
Theatrical.
Oh, it was blowing fire. It was spitting blood. It was the costumes. It was just mental. They were just an absolute mess on stage, just in terms of music anyway. Like other bands didn't like going on after them, mainly because they would show them up so much. This is early on when they're supporting. And because he'd spit blood on stage and make a mess of the stage and trash the place. And other bands had come out to this trash stage, which I'm sure isn't fun.
Yeah.
No,
I'm not surprised. Now, Bill, have you had much experience with Kiss or heavy metal in general? Really, I should have asked that before.
I have a lot to say about this particular subject, actually.
Yes.
Kiss was I was in 5th grade when this, I don't know that makes me seem a lot older, I guess, when Kiss became really big. And I remember, Evan, what you're talking about here, because looking at this album, I did not have I did listen to all this stuff. I did not recall this album at all. And I don't recall a single one of these songs. And it sounds astonishingly primitive and thin and like, garage band compared to what I remember as Kiss. And I was like, this really seems like amateur hour. And it sounds like, from what you're saying, Evan, they actually were not that popular. This album wasn't that big.
No.
And I remember looking through these. I remember so the first song by Kiss I ever remember hearing was from Dress to Kill, their third album, Rock and Roll All Night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then we have the double album that you're talking about, Alive. And this was all when I was in 4th and 5th grade. And then Destroyer, which had Detroit Rock City. And then the album I remember everybody having, I don't know if I had it or not. It was Rock and Roll Over, 1976. And I had Calling Dr. Love, which I must have heard a bazillion times, as well as a couple other songs that I remember. But this was a song, Kiss was the biggest thing in in 5th grade in America, and like everybody was talking about it all the time, playing this particular album, Rock and Roll Over. And there was so much, like, they were always featured in every, like, every publication. They were always on the covers of all the rock, back when there were rock and roll magazines like Cream and stuff on the newsstands. And but I also recall that it wasn't long after, it wasn't even before the end of 5th grade, that everyone started to turn on them, because the satanic thing got started, and everybody was like, KISS it's an acronym for Knights in Service to Satan. And everybody was 100% convinced this was true. And my friend, who was the biggest KISS fan in the world, either burned or somehow destroyed all his albums. And immediately basically that was the last we ever heard of KISS. So honestly, it sort of peaked and ended all in 5th grade, due to these crazy rumors. And that's pretty much what I have to say about KISS.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty much spot on. Like, yeah, just, the popularity was on the upswing with Alive and then Destroyer and rock and roll all over, and then it started going downhill again. You got things like, they started being very Hollywood. Gene Simmons started dating Cher, which the fans didn't like. That's kind of
I remember that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gene Simmons is a guy.
Yeah.
It's not the actress.
No, he was actually a renowned nymphomaniac. Yeah, they all had their vices, which did sort of start to bring them down. I think it was Ace Frehley was heavily into every vice generally.
Paul Stanley was into musical theatre.
Oh,
He
okay.
played the Phantom in the Phantom of the Opera, I believe.
But yeah, they started going sort of very Hollywood and selling out technically. But yeah, Gene Simmons was renowned for sleeping with anything that moved. It was around Rock and Roll All Over and Love Gun, the band sort of, they weren't getting along, and the record label thought, instead of breaking up, why don't you do a solo album? And then, oh, hang on, maybe why doesn't each band member do a solo album? So they released like 4 albums in 1 year. One's called Paul Stanley, one's called Gene Simmons, one's called Ace Frehley, one's called Peter Criss. And I think then they still stuck together for another album. Then they all took their makeup off and they had this unmasked sort of decade. Because they went through a long time of actively hiding their identities. And they're literally coming out of restaurants, covering their faces and having paparazzi chase them. And they just, although it was nice to be able to walk down the street and not be recognized, Ace Frehley was getting annoyed with it because he wanted to be recognized. He wanted to be a star. He has a star on his face. That was his thing. He wanted to be huge. So they did eventually unmask, and they did like 10 years. The lineup changed a lot during that. Obviously, Gene Simmons stayed around. He never left. I think Paul Stanley never left either. But yeah, it was around that mid-70s, someone decided that they should make a movie.
Oh, yeah.
And they made a film called Kiss Meets the Phantom. And it turns out, I think it was a great lesson, and it's probably why you don't see it ever, of putting a band in a film, because none of them knew how to act.
I saw Spice World, the movie, on opening day, Evan, by myself.
Yeah, and at this point, Ace Frehley was really heavily drinking and into any substance he can get, and he would often not show up, didn't want to do it, he just wanted to play. And there's literally scenes in that film where it's not him, it's a stunt double in makeup, and then they ended up redubbing all of his lines anyway because he was just terrible. And it was just a massive flop. And on top of merchandise, the parallels between Kiss and the Simpsons with merchandise.
Yeah.
I would say nothing merchandise is more than Simpsons, but I think Kiss might have. They literally put their name on everything. It was just everywhere. And even to the point of selling Kiss makeup. And it was just, you name it, they had Kiss on it. It was just nuts. And they were making millions out of it because they bought everything. The fans were just rabid for anything Kiss. And like you said, during their peak, you'd go to the newsstand and every cover of every magazine would be Kiss. They'd be across all genres. They'd be in the gossip papers, they'd be in the music papers, the lifestyle magazines, you name it. Kiss was on the cover. It was nuts.
They didn't swear, did they? In their music, I mean. Like their music wasn't really explicit.
I've never heard that brought up. I can't think of any.
Well, they are. Well, think about it. There was Kiss dolls that were very popular with children. So you'd think they're being marketed to all ages.
Kiss comics and
that time in America, I don't know if there would be giant F-bombs in the middle of songs aimed at children. I don't know. It was a bit different in Australia. We had, Prisoner and Number 96 and all those. We had titties on primetime TV, basically.
Wow.
In the 70s. Yeah. Well, I wasn't alive then, obviously, but it was the Ozploitation era. So it was very raunchy in Australia.
But just randomly, one of the coolest things in doing my research, because obviously I've heard plenty of Kiss. I didn't realize there was that many albums. It's like 24 albums, and that's not counting live ones. Oh shit, I missed what year it was. I think it was about 96. They'd had their rise, they had their fall, they've gone through lineup changes and infighting and all the rest of it. They'd taken the makeup off for about 10 years, and they'd been really quiet. And I think it was the 96 Grammys. Oh, the people were starting to do Kiss conventions and doing cover bands, and they sort of realized that people still wanted them. And all the cover bands, of course, were all in makeup. And I think Peter Criss was even at one of the conventions and got up and played with them, and of course, fans went nuts. But they sort of realized just how popular they still were. This is 20 years after the fact. And somehow they just they got together and went, hey, everyone wants us in the makeup again. Let's get the original lineup back, get the makeup on, and let's just give it another shot. So I think it was the 96 Grammys. They went in full makeup, full costume, didn't tell anybody, didn't even announce to the Grammys that they were coming. They literally just walked in.
Wow.
But again, it didn't last. There was fighting over money and all the rest of it, and the lineup changes again. Oh, that was the other crazy thing is they didn't tell, because they had replaced people. They'd replaced band members, and then they've reformed really without telling them either. So they see them on the Grammys and they're like, oh, well, I guess I'm out of a job. And of course the infighting, they fell apart again, and the replacement members came back, so they did end up back in Kiss again. But yeah, just there's a clip of it on YouTube of them sort of walking out unannounced on the Grammys, and it's just like, oh wow, what a thing to see, to have seen that.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up. I started watching a documentary on them, but I got about a minute in and realized, oh shit, I better get to editing. I don't have time to watch a 83-minute documentary right now.
Yeah, they've just got a hell of a story, basically, just in general. They really did take over the world for a period there. There was just Kiss everywhere.
What was that like in America at the time, Bill? Because this is a very theatrical, very camp, I'm going to say very gay band when you look back at it now. They're prancing around in makeup and big hair and codpieces. Today, we do call that RuPaul's Drag Race.
It was about 20 kilos of stud and armor. Yeah, it's a lot of gear to wear. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's very camp. Was that very masculine at the time?
It didn't seem particularly gay at the time, because we had, at the same time you had Village People, other more intentionally, depicted as gay groups. And so they seemed like heavy metal. And it wasn't really that different than Alice Cooper. I mean, the thing about it is, like, everybody kind of knew Alice Cooper, who had sort of pioneered this kind of thing. And then Kiss did it, and then Marilyn Manson did it. Like, it's been going around for a long time, this particular type of stuff. So it seemed more heavy metal, and it seemed pretty, and everybody loved it until the whole satanic thing came along and frightened everybody away from them. Or I don't know, everybody, at least everybody I knew.
Yeah, there was people who thought that the blood was real, and there were, someone accused Gene Simmons of killing puppies to get the blood to spit on stage. And the press got really nuts. It's funny you should mention Alice Cooper, though, because that was the inspiration for the makeup. They did actually go to an Alice Cooper show, early 70s. They're like, oh, that's so cool. Look at it, it's Alice Cooper's makeup, and going, oh, that's so cool. What if we were 4 Alice Coopers? And off they went.
It worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't Insane Clown Posse still does this type of thing too, right? I'm not really familiar with their whole genre or all their fans, but like, it seems like there's always been, ever since Alice Cooper, there has been someone doing this shtick nonstop since it was invented.
Yeah. Are they juggalos? They're fans?
Yes, they're juggalos.
Wow. Yeah. I remember that from 20 years ago.
I think they're still around, though.
Yep, they are.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me. No, I thought they were wearing makeup because they were swings for cats and they were waiting to get the call to go on. I don't think there's much else, because it's Kiss. Everyone knows Kiss. So what's the point in continuing?
Yeah, Kiss were all about the fans. It was the fans that drove them, more so than the music, and certainly more so than the albums. It was the live shows. That was, the live shows nearly sent them broke. Actually, by the time they recorded their third album, they were pretty much skint because of the cost of the live shows, and they just weren't making their money back.
Mm-hmm. And nowadays, the fans drive me crazy. Yeah. Anyways, we'll kiss goodbye to metal and throw to an ad break.
Coming this summer, winter, spring, or fall, the first ever musical theater sitcom, where you go behind the scenes of the latest West End show, the Fosse Forest Ballet.
Where's the important stuff? Aha! £1,000 a week ensemble rate. Ah, that's what Mamma Mia likes.
Starring Philip Joel and a West End cast featuring Carrie Ellis, Darren Day, Louise Demon, and Oliver Saville, and more.
It all started in 1987 when I was a jobbing actress working in a diner.
Yeah, it's just I had a really bad experience when I was touring Australia with a wombat.
Darling! Mwah, mwah.
La, la.
How long have I been mentoring you? 3 months?
2 years.
So her name is Henrietta.
The horse. Yes. I've managed to secure you an audition for the biggest, most innovative, and the latest show to be going into the West End. Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat. Think more along the lines of Panto.
Frozen.
You can watch this episode for the price of a coffee. Simply go to www.thefosseforestballet.com. Any and all profits go back to theater charities, acting for others, and the theater's trust. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you'll see a grown man in sparkly tights.
Tight nights. Nice. Tights.
Anyways, we're back with Thrash and Treasure. I'm Aaron, that's Evan, and we are joined by the one and only, the amazing Bill Oakley. Holy guacamole. But anyways, we're going to move on to the musical. Before we do, I've got a fun question for you. What episode of The Simpsons do you think would make a fun Broadway musical if fleshed out?
Ooh.
Well, honestly, I think that we should do Planet of the Apes, the musical. In fact, people have, I think that whole Fish Called Selma
Yeah.
should be Planet of the Apes, the musical should be a musical. And I honestly can't, actually, people have been talking about this for a very long time. Somebody wrote a complete script for it and sent it to me like 20 years ago. And we couldn't read it because we can't just read random scripts that people mail us. But it's come up a lot. And I wish that, I'm sure it's going to be done at some point and as a Simpsons thing. And I wish I would get some money for it, but that's not the way it works.
No.
The problem is that the Disney owns the rights to it. So I won't be doing it. I'm actually working on my own, or I'm thinking about writing a Broadway musical based on something else that I have produced and written, but it's not that. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back into working on Simpsons material.
Yeah.
Did a good job and left it behind, and I'd rather not get back reopen that can of worms.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. But we'll move on anyways, because while we've mentioned Disney, just in your work in general, because animation you've talked about, obviously not every animation writer talks about getting a lot more freedom in the writer's room in terms of not having network oversight. Have you ever experienced much backlash from third parties, like other corporations? I'm not talking about fans complaining. I'm talking about like companies that have been like, we're going to pull our advertising from you.
I wouldn't say that we've had a lot of issues like that. Like that stuff doesn't get on the air. It only gets on the air on The Simpsons because the lawyers are very the lawyers that we had in The Simpsons were extremely nice.
Yeah.
And just said everything can be. This is a joke. It's clearly a joke. And however, the lawyers elsewhere are not like that, and they don't let you put that stuff in. So I never have had. That stuff simply does not get on the air. It doesn't even get past the second draft of the script. Generally, anything that would offend any corporation. Like I gather that you can do that in movies because movies are not supported by commercials so much, but now they kind of are because of streaming service. Anyway, but on TV shows, they don't even let you refer to things. In general, the lawyers take it out. If it's completely neutral, maybe they'll let you keep it in. But even so, they'll be like, can we replace this mention of this brand? So I'm sorry to say. And other times we've tried, we've actually asked permission. We've got it a couple times. On Mission Hill, we got permission from Bugles to have Bugles be Andy French's favorite snack, and they were delighted about it. But other things, that's one of the few times we're asking has not resulted in an outright no.
Wow. Because I know the Sex and the City reboot had
Peloton is very. I bet they're not happy about that.
Peloton, yeah, and they're like, we didn't know that you were going to kill him with our bike, for crying out loud.
Yeah. and literally counteracted it with an ad campaign saying, no, he's fine.
Yeah.
It wasn't the bike that killed him.
But no, Evan, he wasn't fine because he was cancelled the very next day. But anyways, we're going to move on to the musical because I chose another mainstream musical that everyone knows. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that's also an animation put on the stage. So I chose The Lion King, as we've just had the Pumbaa that I had seen on the show, and we also had a Rafiki. So I figured hopefully, Bill, you'll have seen The Lion King at least once in the past 20, however many years. Is it 28 years now? Oh, shit.
No, I should say no. I've only seen fragments of The Lion King.
Wow.
The movie, and I've never seen this musical, and I have opinions about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, look, so do I. But like I say, Evan, if you want to quickly run through your review and how you found, because Evan, you wouldn't have seen anything. You're the
well, obviously I've seen the films many times. I have children.
Well, if I'd known that, I would have picked Anastasia.
I think everyone has. Who was it who mentioned that like The Lion King is one of the biggest properties, in general?
It was John.
Yeah, where once you add up all the merchandise and all the movies and all the musicals and merchandise from that, I'm annoyed that that you've spoiled it for me.
Why?
Because oh my god, I was watching clips and behind the scenes, and I'm a DIYer. I'm literally in my workshop now.
An artisan.
And the technical work behind the stage is incredible. It's next level.
Okay, yeah, I won't argue back with you.
Yeah. But yeah, obviously everyone knows Lion King, everyone knows the main songs, Can Feel the Love Tonight and Circle of Life. As soon as you hit play and it hits, Rafiki hits Circle of Life, and it immediately it's those Disney feels, Disney nostalgia, that Disney money. It's just, it gets you immediately. And you're right back with, watching it with your little kids and over and over and over again. Yeah, Rafiki steals the show, just outright, basically.
Yeah.
One of the things that really stuck out to me listening to it is I love the sound of the snare, that just being, drummer orientated. I love the tuning of the snare. It's beautiful. I love it.
You're talking Broadway musical here?
Yeah, just the snare drum really stands out of just being gorgeous. I don't know how expensive that drum is and how well tuned it is, but it's beautiful. I'm amazed they actually managed to improve on the film with the musical. And the new songs I find are even more, they're better than the popular ones that everyone knows.
Which ones? The Madness of King Scar, yes.
No, mainly the traditional.
That is gorgeous, but
yeah, the traditional African music, just like the Grassland Chant, really sticks out.
A lot of that was pre-written for Rhythm of the Pride Lands.
Yes, which was still based on the Lion King.
Music inspired by the Lion King, yes.
Yeah, those in between ones. Was it One by One, Shadowland? Yeah, I was surprised to hear The Lion Sleeps Tonight rendition in there, and it was a really nice take on it.
Yeah, but it goes for like a minute and it's not the song.
It doesn't matter, it's still really cool.
The full song's on Rhythm of the Pride Lands.
So I wasn't a fan of things like the Morning Report and Chow Down.
Now, Morning Report's from the movie, but they cut it out.
Okay.
But you can tell why.
Not a fan of that, but the traditional,
good song.
The traditional African songs or newer songs that were made for the other album, those are the ones that really stood out. When you've got, it was just so authentic and big choruses. Just I do love the African / South African singing. It's amazing. But yeah, so I found I listened to this more times than I did the Kiss album.
Oh wow!
It was at least 3 or 4, which is, like I said, I bought some new headphones, so I was able to listen to it a lot more, and I was putting this back on a lot. But yeah, I was annoyed that you've spoiled The Lion King for me, because I started watching behind the scenes and little clips here and there, and it's the whole, they do a circle theme where like all the gazelles come out in circles. There's a lot of circles. The masks are circles, like they run
is what you're saying.
Yeah, they run patterns and things through it all the way through. But what really blew me away again was the technical side of it, like the costumes being they're like carbon fiber puppets, Now they'd be expensive to make, and they have to remake them. There's over 300 pieces of costumes and puppets
for multiple productions.
No, just for the one show.
For multiple productions around the world, though, they're not going to make one puppet and then send it around the world.
Oh, sure.
They have to make multiple editions.
Yeah.
And you never make just one of anything, Evan.
No, of course not. They get damaged, they get replaced, that kind of thing. But they're mostly carbon fiber, balsa wood. They're super light.
Yeah.
The attention to detail in like literally weaving grass bead corsets. Obviously, it's not real grass, but painting the shoes to the skin tone of each individual actor. They even had this system. They had this computer-controlled system. Oh, the lighting, of course. There's 2 separate lighting desks, which is freaking out of the park already. When they come off stage, an actor will come off stage, a performer will come off stage, and they'll take their costume off, and it hangs on these motorized hooks. They've got like a track gear system where they'll hang things up, and the computer will take it off back to where it's supposed to be.
Wow.
And the same, like backstage is just as high tech as the front stage. That was in the touring company. So God knows what they did on Broadway. Maybe they don't have a room on Broadway to do that. It's something like 27 truck containers of gear to move the show. And I was blown away by how it looks and the technical background of it, how much effort they would have had to go through to put that show on stage. And it really pushes the boundaries of what you can achieve on a stage. I mean, I was sitting there saying a few times to myself, I don't think this is a musical. This is a show.
It's a theatrical event. Yes.
Yeah, it's an event. Yeah. And you've spoiled it for me because I now see it. I've seen what's on stage. I'm really jealous that you've seen it.
I saw it in 2004. After 7 years of build up, really desperate to see it, and I wasn't impressed, but I'll get to that. Now, Bill,
I wasn't impressed.
You had a lot of well, no, there was a lot. I've done a pros and cons list, but we'll do that last.
Yeah. Oh, and just the other little behind the scenes thing I saw was the actors or the performers having to learn to become puppeteers. And they're going, it doesn't matter what your background is in performing, we all had to learn how to be puppeteers, and they suffer from repetitive puppetry syndrome, where Pumbaa might be on stage for like 7 minutes, but they've rehearsed that every week for hours, and they're having to do the same actions over and over, and they're straining muscles they didn't know they had. And he goes, and then your back goes, and then your hands are cramping up, and the physical toll is really quite immense on the performers to put that on. So yeah, I was blown away. I was amazed that you could even do this kind of thing on a stage. And if I had to give it a score, it's got to be over 5 somewhere between 5 and 10.
It premiered in 1997, so they've been able to do that sort of thing since at least 1997.
Oh, it's genius. It's inspired.
Yeah.
And I really wish it would come here, or I could go somewhere to see it.
It's been to Perth twice, I think.
Yeah, I know.
Or at least once. Now, Bill, you said you had a lot of thoughts about this, so I am so curious.
I don't. I'm not qualified.
You're not qualified?
Okay, let me just start by saying I'm not qualified to judge these things. I don't like Broadway musicals in general all that much, so I'm probably not. I probably shouldn't be on this show.
That's why, to then force people who don't like musicals to listen to musicals.
I listened to this whole thing and I didn't enjoy it. That's the problem. I guess I would say I think your entry point, based on what you said, Evan, you have to have some familiarity with The Lion King, and have some affection for it to care about this at all. Okay, I've seen fragments of the movie. My kids have seen it, obviously, and I've seen it while I was walking through the room. I didn't sit and watch it with my kids multiple times, but it wasn't one of their favorites either. So I'm familiar with many of the other more recent Disney movies and things, but this one I'm only I know Timon and Pumbaa and all those things or whatever, but I don't have a familiarity with the story, and I don't have a great deal of affection for it. So I listened to this as a person only vaguely familiar with the story and with no built-in affection for the franchise. Okay, so I listened to the songs and I was just like, I didn't really enjoy any. The songs were all fine, but I found, other than the African ones, I found them to be fairly indistinguishable from every other Broadway musical song from the past 20 years. Like, and this is like, I could be, and I know this is heresy to those of you who follow Broadway musicals. There's only certain Broadway musicals that I've listened to repeatedly, like, and they're ones from the 50s and 60s with real catchy songs, like Guys and Dolls or The Music Man or things like that. This didn't have any catchy songs as far as there didn't have any songs I wanted to listen to a second time or hum or whatnot. And so, I'm definitely a Philistine when it comes to this Broadway. Most recent Broadway things, I've seen a couple things where I enjoyed it, but in general, I find all the songs to be somewhat similar to one another. And they all kind of blend together, and I don't walk out of the theater going, oh man, I'd love to hear that song again. So what I hear is I'm not seeing this as an event, as a spectacle, as a musical. I'm hearing it as a playlist of songs that I've never heard before, and I didn't find any of them to be particularly delightful to the point that I wanted to listen again. Whereas in Kiss, I did. There were 2 or 3 songs in Kiss that I listened to twice because I was like, hey, that's pretty good. This didn't happen. And I'm familiar with the Circle of Life, by the way. That's the one everyone knows because it plays in all the previews and stuff. So that one, I didn't count that in my assessment. Anyway, there you go. I'm sorry to be so contrary to the conventional wisdom about this.
No, that's the point. That is entirely the point.
That's why we have this show is to explore what we do and don't like in worlds that we're not normally going to dive into. Like, as I say, after 7 years of build up from it premiering on Broadway to premiering in Melbourne and seeing it, I was so goddamn excited. And seeing the movie at the cinemas, and that was the first time I had ever seen an audience applaud at the end of a movie, because the cinema was just gripped with that original film. And so I was so goddamn excited. We had premium tickets that were $200 each, front row of the balcony, right in the middle, really fucking expensive. So my pros and cons are, the puppetry and costumes, fantastic. The music and the African culture was great, but the songs, the English songs, if you will, the Western songs were rather juvenile. That Morning Report didn't fit in the melody of it, or that
it's jarring.
It's sort of just like, I've heard that sort of melody before. It's like riding a horse. That's really what it sounded like. They were riding a horse. It didn't fit with where we were, what we had just come from, this grand opening. So that already took me out of where we were. And these are things like I've been thinking about this since I saw it, because I didn't know if it was me that was the problem or if it was the show that was the problem. Okay, I loved the culture and authenticity behind it up until that point, and it was 2004, so I was 19. I don't think I had seen a musical that was predominantly not white, basically, if you will, because Hairspray hadn't come here yet, and we haven't had Dreamgirls, or we've had one production of The Wiz in the 70s. And the one production of The Wiz I did see was entirely white. So that didn't work out. Plus, I was in an all-white King and I. So the ideas behind it, fantastic. And the performances were fantastic, but it was messy. The staging of it was messy. It's all good and well to have these puppets, but when they came down the aisles and met up on the stage, there's meant to be this scene in the movie where all those animals bow down. And they didn't. They sort of just waved their arms around like fucking...
Oh.
And so with all these puppets, look, watch it again, and you will see there is no clear choreography with all these animals. If they had been waves of movement, like a Mexican wave of movement, or something, anything that wasn't goddamn messy. And so straight up from that opening number, I'm like, what am I watching?
I think there's a choreographer out there who's getting their gun right now.
Good. Bring it on. Come on my show and we'll have this. We'll debate this. The script, juvenile, was childish.
What?
The script, the book was juvenile. For the stage, it was.
It's your prodigal son coming of age, growing up to become a man, filling your father's shoes type story.
And this was an animated movie that made people applaud at the end of it, Evan.
Yeah.
The first time I'd ever seen people applaud, and Beauty and the Beast could have done that but it didn't. The Lion King did. So therefore, and it's based on Hamlet. Therefore, you don't go down the juvenile route, for crying out loud. The leveling and the sound design was lazy. There were songs that the song would be quite at a middling level, and then it would go to a dance break, which would double in volume, and it was quite jarring. And it did that, I think, twice during the show, and it took me out of what I was watching.
See there your beef is with the sound engineer on the day.
And this is the show that I've sat down and paid $200 for, Evan. So I'm judging the show on what I saw. Thank you very much. I told Pumbaa last week that I whispered it to him. I didn't like it because then it takes away the pain, and at least made him laugh. Okay, the sets were kind of good. I know Freddie came on this show and said that she loved the minimalism behind it, but I just paid $200 for this.
Yeah, that was on purpose. They were saying that they needed to be able to, they needed, not just on purpose, but they needed to be able to fit into any theater that they were going to go to. So it was on purposely minimal.
That's why they do tour versions.
What you actually saw going on. You know, backstage, there was just, mental technological achievements.
I'm sure it was. Well, but no, for $200 a ticket for a barren stage with fucking swaying lettuce in the most romantic number that was not good enough from Disney, lettuce. When 8 years before we had seen Beauty and the Beast, where this magnificent castle set came out, and it was huge and it was brilliant and it was spectacular. This was puppets. That was the spectacle, and I don't think it was enough for $200. I don't care how expensive they are, because there are 3,500 people in that theater, so they're making their money. Anyways, fair performances enough. I already said that. The execution, 70% of it was good, and that wasn't good enough for me.
How? I've never heard you tear into a musical like this before.
Well, think of how much I love The Lion King, as I just said. I still have the CD. It's well, I would have gotten it out like I got my rent one out last week, but there's too many spiders behind there. And the price point, fucking ridiculous. What the hell? This is a children's musical and there's barely any set. Why are you charging me $200 a ticket?
Because those are carbon fiber Giselles that are hand painted and they have to be replaced every few shows. So yeah, there's where your money went.
Yeah, well, and then Julie Taymor went on to direct Across the Universe using Beatles music, and what the hell was that movie? And then she went to direct Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. So please, Broadway, stop giving her money. Sorry, I'm sure she's talented, but anyways, that's why I didn't like The Lion King, all those reasons.
Wow.
So I'm completely with you, Bill. I'm completely with you. This was not a good.
I'm fantastic. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I didn't see The Lion. You're talking about an actual performance of this thing. I'm just talking about a playlist of songs. So it seems like this is, for us, it's struck out in every possible way.
Yes. Oh, the African, as I said, the African music is great, but
yeah,
that was already on the Rhythm of the Bradlands, so there wasn't anything really new besides Chow Down.
I think that was good, but I didn't like, as a musical, it wasn't something that I want to listen to over and over again.
Yeah, no, save your money.
It just seems, honestly, I think I'm sure you guys have covered this. It seems like at least half, I don't know, what percentage of musicals are just franchises, are just famous intellectual property like Spider-Man and The Lion King, and movies and TV things that already exist, that they are like, let's figure out a way to exploit this and get some more money out of it.
Pretty much from the start.
Yeah, there's a good chunk.
From the start, it was novels, and it was like is it the Tin Pan Alley, where the songwriters would all be collecting up songs and they turn them into musicals.
Right.
Broadway's been franchising everything the same as Hollywood, really, since existence.
Yeah,
basically.
Well, same as movies, really. Let's just adapt this novel that I found. Yeah,
it's just more predominant now.
Perhaps it's just that they're using intellectual property that I don't particularly have any affection for. Maybe that's my complaint, because I don't care about seeing a Spider-Man musical or a Lion King musical, or if they were to use intellectual property that I was interested in, like Planet of the Apes, then I'd probably be there, and I would probably be giving it a far more positive review, because I had built-in affection for the franchise before I walked in the door.
Yes. They've done a little bit of sci-fi, but there's really not. There's no space.
No, the Broadway audience doesn't like that kind of stuff.
No, well, they don't know if they do.
You go to a Broadway show in New York and you see the composition of people who attend Broadway shows. It's not the sci-fi crowd.
I can't think of anything that is actually set in space or is about aliens. I think that with Amy Adams' movie, what was that one? Arrival. I think that would make a fantastic small musical with a small cast and an amazing puppet behind the glass, like like a small chamber musical, not a big one. So because that was a very much a character study, that, but no, Broadway doesn't do much in the way of sci-fi, so I can't imagine they would do Planet of the Apes, but they did Shrek.
Yeah, and SpongeBob.
And SpongeBob,
which is apparently really successful.
Well, it didn't last too long on Broadway. You can see there is a pro shot. We'll do it eventually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, but look, everything's they even made Pretty Woman into a musical.
Yes.
Yeah, Bryan Adams did that.
Well, do musicals? Don't almost all musicals end up having to be family-friendly crowd pleasers? Like they don't get to be genre pieces very much. They don't get to be sci-fi or horror or whatever. They have to be.
Yeah.
No, I think you'll find there's a lot of irreverence.
Yeah, but there's a limit, to what they can put on stage.
A lot of nudity. A lot of nudity and orgies.
Nudity. Which ones? Wait, when you talk about Oh Calcutta, which ones?
Well, that's what I was.
What nudity and orgies have we seen on Broadway in the past 20 years?
Rent, there was an orgy scene
under a sheet.
Where they're all well, still, but it's still a sex scene. When you go and see that as a 12-year-old with your mother, it's a little bit uncomfortable.
Why are they all fighting under that sheet?
I knew what they were doing. Thank you very much. They were literally like hot, sweat, sweet, wet, and all that. They were totally into it. Yeah, there's been there's next to normals about. I mean, it's not about sex or anything, but it's about bipolar disease. So it's very dark and very gritty. I find there's a lot of irreverence,
but no one's throwing blood and guts on stage in a horror musical.
Yes,
really?
They are in Sweeney Todd.
Oh, okay.
It's true, Sweeney Todd.
Sweeney Todd, Little Shop of Horrors, Everyone Gets Eaten. There's another one which just popped into my mind and then popped out again. The Toxic Avengers, Fat Boy the musical. Yeah, no, there's quite a fair bit. And we'll do Sweeney Todd again at some stage because you haven't seen it. And Sondheim is
I haven't seen
a legend. But anyways, I think the Lion King has lied down. That was a really terrible.
The Lion King has slept in the jungle.
Terrible. Yes, that's it. The lion is sleeping tonight. Whatever. We're going to go to an ad break. We're back in a moment with Bill Oakley. G'day, listeners. Aaron here. While you're topping up your coffees, did you know that you can support our show and go on a fantastically scary adventure at the same time? Go to www.thetonistantales.com/bookstore to grab your copy of The Toniston Tales, a darkly funny Aussie trilogy about a young boy who rescues injured animals in his spare time and the roller coaster ride he's taken on by a literal fish out of water. Written by me, the village idiot of Thrash and Treasure, you'll come to love Toniston Turnbull and the dozens of wacky characters that he meets along the way. And here is a sneak peek. After barely 3 hours of light sleep, Toniston Turnbull slowly opens his eyes, his body feeling heavier than it ever has before. Not from extra weight, from tiredness and stress. Polly sighs in the shadows behind him, the flame of the nearest barbed wire tiki torch tower having died down, but not out, while Toniston napped. "Are you awake?" Toniston whispers. "Oh, how can I sleep in this place?" Polly moans, turning onto her side and facing Toniston, who stays on his back, imagining obscure animal-esque shapes in the rusted tin roof above them, shadows faintly formed by the nearest dying torches. "We need to work out a way to get out of here," Toniston states the obvious. He whispers despite the fact the nearest shacks to their own are several meters away, and the occupants presumably asleep as most prisoners seem to be. "How? There's no fence to squeeze through, or even climb," Polly replies, sitting up in bed and then stretching out her sore arms. The hairs stand on end from the slight chill in the air. "I don't know, but I think the whole fighting thing is a distraction." "You mean to distract the other prisoners when new ones arrive?" "No, I think that was just bad timing. Didn't you notice? Toniston goes on to explain his theory. That fight happened, everybody gathered around. I didn't see one person who wasn't watching, and then when I vomited, the only gate in this place closed shut. What are you trying to say? I think something happened when everyone's back was turned. Like what? Whispers Polly, her voice breaking up in fear. I don't know. That's what we've got to find out. Toniston's brain starts working overtime, but it's strange that nobody seems to want to leave. They seem almost happy. Definitely content. So, when's the next one of those stupid beatdowns? Toniston can't help but think Polly looks tough, almost evil in the shadows as she asks, I don't know, Toniston begins. But both teenagers are distracted by a crumbling noise in the distance. Hopping out of bed, Toniston joins Polly on her own, equally uncomfortable one, spotting a large, white package hovering close to the cave ceiling. Behind it, a shadowy figure. The package is lowered down, causing the teenagers themselves to lower as well, hoping not to be spotted by whom or what may be operating this obscure crane. Over a long, slow descent, the package is dropped to the ground. Polly keeps her eyes on it, but Toniston looks up immediately, spotting a large black shadow scurry away to God only knows where. Come, he whispers, as he quietly hops off her bed, slipping into his docks with bare feet. Polly follows his lead. Careful to keep watch on all directions, the teenagers swiftly sneak over to the white package, their hearts beating an almost tribal jam in perfect harmony, and stopping in their tracks as the sudden realization of what lies before them sinks in. A woman, seemingly in her early 20s, wrapped up in bandages from the neck down. No, not bandages. Is that spiderweb? Polly asks, completely mortified at the prospect. Grab your copy of The Toniston Tales from thetonistonTales.com/bookstore today. Hooroo! Alrighty, you're listening to Thrash and Treasure. I'm Aaron, that's Evan, and we are joined by animation writer extraordinaire Bill Oakley. Goodness gracious me. Now, okay, you're on a rather politically incorrect show. Now, I can tell the difference in watching a comedy show of what's an attack and what's someone's personal feelings, and what's a joke. But this sudden quote-unquote cancel culture and PC culture that we're suddenly in at the moment, has that changed your work in any ways? Or how you approach your work?
It hasn't, but the stuff I do generally hasn't been that controversial.
Yep.
Like it's not like I'm doing like monologues about contemporary events. The stuff that I do is almost 100% character driven stuff where it's now selling the stuff. Like it's never easy to sell stuff, like to sell your pitch or your show to a network. It's not any easier now than it was then. It's like, and you never know what they're looking for either. Like now they're like, they claim to be looking for stuff of a certain type, and then they don't buy that stuff when you go pitch it. So who knows? Like in any case, I haven't had a lot of problem with that type of thing because I don't deal in contemporary. I don't like do a lot of shock value type stuff like Louis C.K. or whatnot, and so it's not been a big issue for me. Although, I mean, I think there's also different types of cancel culture. To be honest, like there's cancel culture that's well deserved, like Harvey Weinstein or something like that, where it's like it's long overdue that these people be canceled. Then there's the unfortunate type. There's probably other types as well, but the unfortunate type is when the canceling people don't understand what they're canceling, or they're mistaken about what they're angry about.
The context is gone. That's what
right.
It is.
The context is gone, and so it is. I have heard from other people that I work with that it's much harder to do things that are satirical or that are tongue-in-cheek because people don't get it. People don't realize that you were being that it was tongue-in-cheek or satirical, or they don't care. Like you're like they either don't understand the subtleties. They certainly don't understand the subtleties, but they also don't care because they're like, well, you said blank, and you're like, well, I was being ironic. People don't even know what that means. So that's an unfortunate sidelight of this. But you know, it's not, you can't lump the whole cancel culture thing was also even the phrase was made up by the right wing, you know, to help them get away with more shit. So like, it's unfortunate that it's not all the same thing. Sometimes there is consequences. That's what I would say. You know, long overdue consequences are not the same as a incoherent mob making a giant mistake about what someone's intention was.
Amen. Now, I think society doesn't know what irony is, thanks to Alanis Morissette, who taught us the wrong lesson there.
It's 10,000 forks when you need a spoon.
Yeah, and it's all good and well for the right wing to complain about cancel culture, but do the Dixie Chicks ring a bell, anybody? So,
yes,
you know, you were more than happy to cancel them.
Oh yeah,
20 years ago.
yeah.
And I brought this up recently, and someone goes, "Oh, but they bad-mouthed America when they were overseas," and I'm like, and so, goodness gracious me, here you go, America's shit. I bad-mouthed America. Now cancel me. Oh no, but I like you. Oh, okay, that's what it is.
You're not a country music star. You can't get away with that shit when you're a country music star, because it's all about the stars and stripes and the red, white, and blue, and the pickup trucks and the beer and whatnot. And that's their genre that they perform in. So the audience takes it real seriously.
Yes. We'll move on. How true is write what you know, especially in comedy and animation? Because I hear this a lot, or write your own voice or all that. And I'm like, no, I'm going to write what is funny.
It depends on what you're writing. You know, obviously you can make, look, great science fiction, whatever. If you're writing a genre piece, you just be creative. You know, if you're writing horror or science fiction or whatever, or an adventure story, you know, like what people, the guys who are the screenplay for Raiders of the Lost Ark had not lived any of that kind of action adventure material, but they had watched it from, you know, from old serials.
Yeah.
So it's perfectly fine to do that. Now, in certain things, if you want to write certain types of books, especially also if you want to write a drama, if you want to write something serious that deals with real human emotions, it's best that you felt those emotions or been in situations like that, because it gives you more detail that makes it more real. But that's not to say you couldn't make it up from scratch if you're talented.
This so-called #writing community, and this is one of the things, is that write your own voice, write what you know. And I'm like, bitch, no, I'm not writing myself, because that's going to bore everyone.
Well, let me give you the modified version of that you hear in TV.
Yeah,
it is point of view. It's not necessarily you have to write about your own experiences, but you need to depict them with a specific point of view, because you don't want to be bland. And I think that's sometimes what is meant in this genre, is that when people are writing scripts, it's like, this is a certain style. You can tell. So even there's certain shows where you can tell which writers wrote them. You know, where you can tell on X-Files and Simpsons, often you can tell, like, that's a Swartzwelder script, you know, and things like that. You can see that person has a style, has a point of view, and that's very valuable. So I would say write your own style is a more applicable thing than write what you know.
Yeah. So I agree. It took me 14 years to write my novels, because I needed to erase influences like yourself, Bill, basically. And you can't rush into it, I don't think.
Yeah.
Especially not for a novel.
Oh, no.
Where's my plug of the week?
Yes, that's my plug of the week. Now, okay, comedy is subjective, but in a writer's room, there is many voices and minds and points of views. Roughly what percentage of jokes does the showrunner need to find funny in order to go tick? That gets the green light.
Well, rarely does anything go. If the showrunner is the same as the person who's running the writer's room, which it often is, everything. I mean, you've got to make the calls.
They have to find the whole thing funny. Wow. So you need to have a broad sense of humor.
Well, let me say, you got to be willing to have an open mind, or you have to know what you want, I guess, is also more helpful. You know, I've let in plenty of jokes that I didn't find funny, but everybody else laughed at on The Simpsons. Generally, I didn't do it all the time, but when everybody else was like, this is hilarious, and I was like, I don't get it, I still put it in. And so there's a few of those that even to this day, I'm like, I don't get that joke. And there's certain plot points too, that I was like, I don't like this, but everyone else likes it. So, okay, I'll put it in. So but I don't do that all the time. It would take a majority of the room to make me rethink my own position on it.
Yeah, and that's what I thought I'd ask about that, because myself, I don't find much funny. So me being a showrunner on a comedy show would not be a good idea, because I would barely be laughing at anything.
Cut everything.
That's right. Everyone would be there all night, every night, because they'd never be able to get any lines into the script, or you have to write it yourself.
Or I'd have to write it myself. That's it. You can make me laugh, but you need to catch me off guard or be really darn clever about it, which neither of those two things Evan can do. Anyways, moving on. The Simpsons is a satire with dashes of parody, and it has been accused of being prophetic as well, notably with the setting precedents for the President Trump. Is this to suggest that us in real life have turned into parody and satire ourselves if The Simpsons is coming true in our real lives?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. You hit the nail on the head. A lot of the Simpsons stuff is not prophetic. It is, well, first of all, a large percentage of stuff that people claim that we predicted is fake, is something that someone has photoshopped together. But of the things that we actually did predict, many of them are just obvious extrapolations of what probably would happen in 20 years from now.
Yeah.
But there are a few, like Donald Trump becoming president, that are amazing. And in that case, the guy, my friend Dan Graney, who wrote that, said it was a logical last step before hitting rock bottom. Perfect. And that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it was. And so a society has, look, I don't want to be a fatalist about this, but your society has gotten dumber. There's no question that in the past 25 to 30 years, the society as a whole has gotten stupider and more likely to riot over something like a Jimmy Carter statue. You know, that's like that as we had like, and the thing is that we used to just depict like, here's a town full of dummies who don't know what's going on, who get all riled up over everything. And so it was a joke back then. Now, much of the behavior that was depicted in The Simpsons in the 90s is happening today, because everyone is so stupid and so poorly informed. And a lot of these people have been, they've been unleashed to a large extent by Donald Trump, that they're perfectly fine with saying stuff like, I don't need to be vaccinated, or things like being mad at calling up the guy who's the head doctor and threatening his life because you don't want to have to take a vaccine. Things of that nature that are beyond parody that happen all the time here in America, due to the fact that Donald Trump made it totally okay to be an outrageous lunatic, to be a lunatic. And there's no shame in it anymore.
No.
Yeah. He didn't create the lunatics. He just gave them a voice.
Yes. Correct.
Because remember, they were already draining swimming pools because of a disease in the 80s, but wearing a mask is asking too much of them. Just stop and think of the logic there. It takes a lot.
Right.
It takes a hell of a lot to empty a swimming pool, but it takes 10 seconds to grab a mask and put it on. Like, I don't
Logic doesn't apply.
No, it doesn't
Logic,
apply.
Consistency, reason, none of those things apply. And that's an unfortunate thing that's happened over the past. So yes, so the characters, that was in the 1990s, you didn't see nearly so much of that. Now it's commonplace.
Yeah.
So I don't think that we predicted stuff so much as the mob became stupider.
Yeah, we turned into the citizens of Springfield, which is what I was expecting you to say in the question. The answer anyways.
Yeah, I was going to say the whole world is now Springfield.
Yes, no, it is. Have you had any desire to write a feature, live action or animation?
Yes. Well, Josh and I both wrote a couple movies that we sold. They never got made. Most movies that are written and sold do not get made. But we did it. It was I don't like it quite as much as TV, because the problem is the writer is a peon in movies. In TV, the writer is the showrunner who's the boss of everything. In the movies, you write the script, you sell it, and you're gone. You're lucky if they send you a ticket to come to the premiere, and that's it. And then the movie is all about, you don't ever know it's all about the director, it's all about the actors, and the writer never gets mentioned or even treated well or invited to the set. In TV, it's the complete opposite.
No, I do find that. I did have a follow-up there, but that doesn't matter. We'll move on to your fast food, because you have been doing your reviews, and I have my McDonald's socks on.
Hey, wow.
I love my fast food and my McDonald's, which we call Macca's. So if Macca's was to put out an Oakley burger, what would be in it?
Well, they already kind of do it, honestly. It's a cheeseburger with everything on it, meaning lettuce, tomato, pickles, onions, mayonnaise, ketchup, and a little mustard. And they don't do that, but you can modify the quarter pounder deluxe to be like that. And honestly, it's certainly the best nationally available burger we have here, in my opinion, because they've improved it over the years with they don't use frozen beef anymore. And so that's what I like. But there's other ones. And the Australian, by the way, the Aussie burger I made last summer, the Aussie burger, which is the one with the kangaroo meat
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and the beet. You guys all put pickled beets on your burgers.
Well,
That's a normal thing.
No, it's not normal.
No, it's not.
My dad does it and I fucking hate it. Seriously, I run.
Yeah, got to be in the mood for beetroot.
No, never in the mood. Get it out of my house. Kill it.
I made the recipe for the Aussie burger with the lock, as they say, and it had that stuff on it.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff was fairly normal except for the beetroot.
Yeah.
But I didn't mind the beetroot. It was actually not that different than pickles. It's a little bit different than pickles.
What about pineapple and egg?
Yes, those were both on it too.
Okay, yeah, very good. Not that I have them in my burgers.
It was really good.
It was, yeah, good. Because the macos, I think it's one of those off-menu things that you can ask for, like the crunchy McFlurries, which were really, really good.
Oh.
But I did notice you did a poll of the international treats, and Chomp, I think Chomp won.
Chomp was my favorite international candy. I have so much Australian food here, by the way.
Good.
This whole, like right next to me, the whole thing is loaded with Twisties. I love
good,
Twisties.
yum.
Only certain flavors, like the cheeseburger flavor that was a limited time flavor, and the meat lovers pizza flavor. And I have, yes, but the Chomp bar is such a simple candy bar that we don't have that. It's almost like a Kit Kat with caramel inside it, and which it just seems like a no brainer. But we don't have one like that in America. So yeah, the Chomp bar really. It was the best international candy bar I had last year by a wide margin.
The Chomps have been around forever as well. They're the lower sort of price point of chocolate bars. So if the kids are going, oh, can I have a chocolate? So, yeah, have a Chomp. Because
you're cheap.
Because it's only it's 80 cents.
Yeah, because you're cheap. That's why.
Yes. And it's small. It's in weight.
Yeah, they are quite light and fluffy.
Right. It's smaller than most regular candy bars. Yeah.
They are very light and fluffy. I like them. Now there's a chocolate here, if you can get your hands on it. Cadbury Caramilk.
I've had those too. Excellent.
Good.
Yes, I've gotten a pretty good, thanks to some of my Australian fans, I've gotten a pretty generous, also costs fortune to ship the stuff from Australia to here, and to vice versa. Somebody wanted, you guys don't have ranch dressing there, or you don't have very much ranch dressing.
No,
one guy from Australia wanted me to ship him a couple bottles of ranch dressing, and it was over $100.
Yep. Sounds about right. Yeah.
And now you can't even send stuff to Australia. Like apparently we're not even doing it anymore because it's there's some, I don't know what it is, but there's apparently some
COVID.
Yeah, it could be COVID.
Well, yeah, the postal system is under a bit of strain at the moment. Yeah, it is. Yeah, well, see, around here we have, I'm surprised you don't have like an Aussie store somewhere that stocks all that stuff, because we have a New Zealand store, and we have a British deli, and we have an American shop that stocks all the American stuff.
There's an online store.
No, like local brick and mortar stores.
Oh, with the imported stuff. Yeah, and they're really good. They are really good. You get all the American stuff, like Three Musketeers.
Ever since watching Zombieland, I've been fascinated by Twinkies because we don't have them.
Oh yeah.
Yes, we do.
Well, let me finish my story.
Maybe not you on the arse end of Australia, but us on the normal populated side.
I had never seen a Twinkie, and it was only literally last year. We have this shop called Spud Shed, and they have like a British aisle and a New Zealand aisle, and they had an American aisle, and they've got all the American cereals and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, that's an American cereal. This is whole American aisle. I wonder if they have, yes, there they are, Twinkies. And I immediately bought a box. My wife was like, what the hell are you buying Twinkies for? I was like, because it's a Twinkie. I've never seen one before. And they were just this big ball of bloody sugar, and we never bought them again.
It's just literally just a sponge cake with a bit of cream, and I'm like, it's really not that exciting. But
I know.
They are Twinkies. That is that iconic thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, so what has been your proudest achievement? Like a single project or something that's been that you would say has been the pinnacle of your career? Besides coming on this podcast, of course.
Yes. I don't know. I would probably say the Frank Grimes episode of The Simpsons was certainly one of them. Getting the Emmy for the John Waters episode, getting the Emmy for the John Waters episode of The Simpsons was noteworthy, because that was the Emmy that we actually won, that we earned. Because a lot of times you get the award and you didn't really have much to do with that script. That one, we shepherded that thing from an idea, and part of it was our idea anyway. So that's probably it. But also, I'd say, single-handedly, with no help from anyone, developing myself into a food celebrity from nothing has been very enjoyable, because now I do get, I appear on TV shows and I commercials and things like that, and I get offers to go places and get free stuff. And I didn't, and 3 years ago, I didn't have any of that because I didn't, I sort of kind of did this. I did it with no help from anyone, no help from my agents or lawyers or any production companies or any executives giving me notes, and started from zero. Zero being I was already a comedy writer, so I had some skills, but like I didn't know how to edit a video. I didn't know how to use Instagram and that sort of thing. So that's very satisfying, I would say.
Actually, yeah, we rewatched some Simpsons yesterday. My wife had never seen the Bart versus Australia episode.
Oh wow!
So we sat down literally yesterday and watched it.
Was she offended?
Yeah, no. What she was, her main question was like, why does everyone sound British?
That's Americans doing that. It's
I know
the Aussie Kiwi accent that they think we have. That's what they're doing.
That's the one.
Yes, that's the one.
That's the one, mate. I could do an Australian accent. I'm quite proud of my Australian accent.
That's good.
Thank you.
But like even the shot of the Parliament looked like the British Parliament.
The Austria, you mean?
Yeah, no, but the interior.
Oh, okay.
How they drew it looks like the British Parliament. Yeah. So the only real question is, what would a Bart versus Australia episode look like in 2022 with so much exposure online and our crazy government and people watching what Fox News think of them?
That's a good question. I don't have a good answer off the top of my head, but I think the thing is that it's what we were doing in the original episode was making fun of all the Australian stereotypes that had already swamped America during the 80s.
Yeah.
So it was entirely concocted. Our vision of Australia, neither of us having ever been there, was entirely concocted from scratch, from Crocodile Dundee and from every other thing that we saw, and so it was designed to be silly and hopefully, Australians have we thought Australians have a good sense of humor about themselves and find it amusing. So
it's supposed to be.
Today, it's once again, we're in that situation where the silliness is too close to reality. It's, it's beyond, both in America and Australia, it's almost beyond parody. So it would be hard to make fun of it in any realistic way.
Yeah. But you got Chris Hemsworth and all the Hemsworth brothers. So there's a joke in that we keep producing Hemsworths.
Yeah. Well, it'd be hard to do the politics of it. The thing is, I think that people are more familiar with Australia. Doesn't seem like Australia's to Americans these days. I think it seems more sophisticated and more urbane as opposed to being an outback filled with crocodile hunters and stuff like that, as it was in the 80s. Now people are familiar with Australia being a more sophisticated, and also having a lot of the same problems that we have politically. So it's not as much of an unknown, which I think was part of the fun.
Yeah. That's why I was sort of interested in how would that hypothetical of how would that look with that exposure, knowing all this, what sort of things would be poked fun of. And now our prime minister at the moment is Trump 2.0. So there's a lot of material there.
He would like to be, maybe.
He would like to be. He's more like Mr. Magoo.
I don't know. Have you seen Duterte and, Bolsonaro? God damn. There's some very Trumpy leaders out there.
Yeah, but they're they're the people that Trump wanted to be, wish he could have been, because they can actually enact their tyranny. So
before we run out of time, I've got to get in. It's such an honor to be able to talk to the man who was involved in an episode that has worked itself into my vocabulary. Whenever I see an article on the news where they've spent some ridiculous amount of money on a project for something stupid, I will still turn to the TV and go, what? $1.5 million he does? Still do it to this day.
I'm so glad.
What a nerd. What an absolute nerd. I'm so embarrassed right now. Okay, now if you, all the shows you've worked on, if you were allowed, if those creators, those copyright owners said to you, you're allowed one character from each project to create your own show, which characters would you have in this super band or the Marvel universe? I guess it would be the Avengers of animated TV.
Here's the question. Does the show have to be successful? Because it would be a different thing if
No.
Okay, good. Because I would choose characters that would not be successful. I would choose Superintendent Chalmers from The Simpsons.
Excellent. Yeah.
I would choose Gus from Mission Hill. I would choose. I I'd probably choose Zap Brannigan from Futurama. I would choose. I don't know if you have. I don't know what other shows you guys are familiar with that I worked on. I would choose the Ant from Chicago Party Ant. I would choose Alex Orpenberger from Close Enough. So it's kind of a motley crew of of malcontents. I guess I would say they may not work together, and and there's certainly like I'm sure I'm the only person on The Simpsons who would not choose Homer, but I'm tired of Homer and his antics. I like the mellow, dyspeptic, style of Superintendent Chalmers, which nobody would pick other than me. But that's what the kind of humor I like.
Yes, one might say he is an esteemed ham. Now, when I went to bed last night, I thought, while I'm lying down, mind you, I'm going to draw Homer Simpson and see how this turns out. Lying on my side, mind you. So this is my attempt at. I drew lots of them, as we can see. None of them look like Homer. He has a big fat
Those are good.
head.
Those are
not
all
bad.
fairly
They're
good.
not. This one I got a tick. This one got a tick. But as you can see, I forgot to put the ear in because I do know it's an M and a G. I watched my DVD special features. I could turn it upside down and see the other side. So look at that. Like, that's awful. And because I'm doing it from the side, they're all stretched out. It's like a football field where they.
It's still better than I could do. I've tried to draw Homer Simpson thousands of times.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate that.
You could do like an Andy Warhol color scheme and chuck that on a shirt, no problems.
I have Leon Kompowski as a figurine.
Wow. I didn't even know they made that.
Yeah, I got Leon. I got. Well, actually, if we had more time for the musical, we're going to do HMS Pinafore because I have this with Sideshow Bob in his costume. So I got a whole bunch of them, but I only picked out a few ones, and Homer in his moo-moo.
That's a good one. I wish I had that one.
So yeah, like they all just sit on my desk. But in 2015, I gave my nephew $30 to buy any figure he wanted at a convention. And he picked 2 figurines from The Simpsons. As a 5-year-old, he picked Rod and Todd.
Wow.
I know. And I thought at the time, like, that's so funny because why? But also, that's really clever because why pick Homer or Bart, Marge, Lisa, or Maggie, or even Ned Flanders? Why not go with obscure characters that you're not going to be able to just walk into a toy store and buy? So,
well, did he maybe just pick them because they're kids?
Possibly, yeah. Or he was a little nerd and still is. That's probably more likely it. Close enough.
Yes, I did not make up Close Enough. It is, if you saw regular show, it's from the same guy who did that, and it's a great team. I am the head writer for season 3, which is just being animated right now.
Yep.
And possibly season 4, should that be ordered as well. And we're just finishing that up. But the first season, I'm pretty sure, is on HBO. If you guys have HBO Max there.
No.
You don't?
No. We get most of the shows from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, not available in our country.
No.
Okay. Well, it's on, season 1 is on there now. And I believe season 2 has also recently come out overseas.
It's on Netflix in Australia. But anyways, I've come to the end of my questions. So thank you so much for taking time out, this silly little show that we've got, and for taking the time to listen to the music, because I know that you are very, very busy. So it was an absolute honor.
It was my pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun and it broadened my horizons. I would never have listened to either of those things had I not been on the show.
That's it. We want to open minds at this point of people's careers. We want to say to them, you got to open your mind a little bit more here. Come on our show and listen to music. Now, where can people find you on the social medias?
That Bill Oakley, and that's Oakley. That Bill Oakley on both Twitter and Instagram. If you want food, I only do food stuff on Instagram. Yep. I do videos, and I post other things on my Instagram story every day. On Twitter, it's just random stuff of every description.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yes, and I know you love to engage in conversations about fast food, and I
do.
Don't worry, I try not to, because then I'll just get hungry. Like literally, it was 5 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning. I had a chicken drumstick rubbed in tomato and garlic with hash browns and Coca-Cola for breakfast. So
that sounds great.
I know, right?
I had a very Aussie breakfast this morning. I had a sausage roll.
Yes. Have you tried have you been to Australia at all?
I have never been to Australia. I'm dying to visit. I've been dying to visit for a long time. And there's tons of things I want to see and do and eat. And I'm familiar with the whole sausage thing, the whole thing about election day you get a sausage at the hardware store, right?
Democracy sausage.
Yes.
Yes, right.
Yeah, well, the
That's
hardware store is a sort of a separate thing. Generally, on a Sunday, they do fundraising for local sports teams,
Scouts.
and
Yeah, and the Scouts.
Yeah, so you can go to Bunnings, pick up your 2x4s and a new hammer, and get yourself a $2 hot dog. Yeah,
as snag, as we call them.
Yeah,
that's right. That's what it was. That's what I
now,
was trying to think of.
If you're ever in Melbourne, I'm going to get you the greatest donuts in the world. They are just dough balls that they pump jam into the middle of them, and they roll them in sugar. Like, that's really all they are. They're not fancy, proper donut shapes. They're just literally dough testicles. So that's what they look like, and they are crunchy and golden and delicious, and they have a reputation for just being the best. So if you're ever in Melbourne, I'm going to get you some of those.
Fantastic.
Review them, because they're a small shitty market that is so dirty and crappy that you walk in there like, I'm going to get salmonella. I'm clearly going to die by the end of today. But the donuts are just out of this world. They really are the best. But anyways, on that note, to you at home, you take care, and we shall see you next time. Hooroo! Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
What? $1.5 million he does?